I was at the after party last night. I was chatting with Randy Brito, our next guest. It's got a really interesting project. He's from Locomesh. It's called Chat and Send Bitcoin Without Internet.
Thank you very much. Yo. 1 second. Okay. First, thank you for having us here. The rest of the team of Locomesh is also really grateful for having us here, all sponsors and the organization of the conference, right? Thank you very much. Well, I'm going to talk to you about how we think that open source, completely open source and open hardware mesh networks is the best way for using Bitcoin. So we understand that Bitcoin is the best way to permissionless payments for ultimate expression of your economic freedom. That's why I joined Bitcoin on how to make it more used widely over the world. And I started like 8 years ago. But how about using Bitcoin over anonymous censorship-resistant mesh networks is the ultimate expression of permissionless freedom. So this is how traditional internet currently works, like the traditional infrastructure. So you get like cell towers, and you have internet in your house over fiber cables. You connect to them with your phone using your SIM card, where you have already like you give your ID document or your face has been scanned somehow, and you use it to send Bitcoin. You have some Bitcoin that you have earned or that you have sold fiat for. You end up using this over the internet. You make transactions, so you may expose who you are paying to, how much you are paying to, what is your IP address, for example. But, well, what if it's traditional infrastructure run by governments and ISPs and big corporations? Just fails. It basically fails. There is no electricity, for example, for a couple of weeks in your city. Cell towers run out of power and generator power too. There is not 3G mobile anymore, so you are not capable of sending the precious Bitcoin and Satoshi that you are spending on your games or buying food for your family. So, but it's also like this never happened, right? It's like it only happens like for 2 weeks, every 2 months or 1 month in Venezuela only. But it's also like in California the past week, there was no electricity for a few days, or in Argentina when there is bad weather, right? So it happens. So the infrastructure failures, or if someone fails or makes some mistakes in the cell tower or the ISP servers, or Cloudflare goes down, so you cannot connect to any of the services that use Cloudflare to route the connection over their balancers or something. Okay. So, but this is also this situation where everything works as it's intended, and you get connection to the internet, and you can use Tor over the internet, so you get some privacy, and you end up being blocked. So you end up being blocked. You are like individually targeted, or you're in a sanctioned country, so you are not capable of sending Bitcoin, Lightning Network payment. You cannot use Tor. You cannot send messages, SOS messages. You cannot like ask for help. You can do nothing. You cannot make bank transfers or whatever. Not even cards or POS for merchants work in that case. Well, but if you manage to get to have an alternative communication network with the people that you want to transact with, or you want to chat with, or you communicate with, you manage to, I don't know, use ham radio, amateur radio, to make a Bitcoin TX from Canada to the US, that's great. You will have an alternative communication system to continue making like offline Bitcoin transaction that someone else have to broadcast for you, and you can do some, I don't know, multi-signature, so you can make transactions in that situation. And imagine you have your radio banning into another country, so you can make transactions off-grid, completely offline, right? And you do this over radio. Well, the problem of having a stationary antenna or big antenna station where you are transmitting from is that attackers can use radio surveillance techniques to find you. That's also how they claim they got Pablo Escobar, for example. But they are also used. It's also used to persecute dissidents in other countries, people from different religions that they don't like, and things like that. So this is what could happen to you if you are broadcasting from one single location, right? So they use this technique to narrow the area where you are and find you. Well, so the antenna needs to be portable. You need to be able to move around. You need to be able to obfuscate where you are broadcasting from. You need to be safe when you are transacting, but you also need to be private or you need to be able to move around in that way, right? So, but now we see this. Now we have we've moved into batteries and solar panels that you can put on top of your car. You bought this van and you put everything there, big antennas on top of it, so you can carry the antenna around, or you can chat, make Bitcoin transaction completely off-grid because your privacy concerns, you prefer to do it that way. But now you continue using radio for this alternative communication system. The problem is that radio communication, like the ham radio, is not encrypted. So they can listen to your talks, or the chats you are having with others. They can read and see what transactions you are sending or you are sending to. So it also needs to be encrypted. So mesh networks now are being developed on the free bands of the radio bands, so you can encrypt the communications. That's what we are also looking at into the project that is called Locha Mesh. In the Locha Mesh project, you will be able to run one node, which is a Locha Turpial device that you can see there in the drawing. It will let you connect to other devices that talk the same language, even if it's not the same device, because we are thinking about it as open source software, open source hardware that you can build your own in your house. You can buy the pieces, and you can even get all the instructions and all the blueprints and also the hardware and the board specifications, so you can make them your own in your house or manufacture them anywhere you want. You will be able to send Bitcoin transaction, Lightning Network transactions, and also fully end-to-end encrypted messages between you and the recipient. So while if in the same radius of communication, but it's also available for longer distances by making hubs be inside the mesh. So this idea of the mesh is that it needs to be usable in the real life. So we wanted it to be take all the difficulties that all the projects in the past 2 years we've been studying and try to solve them. So there is no limit of the hubs because we use we calculate the routes, so the path, so you actually don't need to broadcast to all who are around you, so you are not spamming the network. You are actually choosing one path and trying that one, getting a feedback back, that if the transaction have been received or not. For example, you will be able to get downlink from the blockchain satellite. So in your device, if you have a satellite dish, and in the computer where you have the satellite dish, you will be able to block one of the Chirpil devices, and that will let that computer or that server to talk to the mesh, to other peers inside the mesh. You will be able to run services on them. That's why we're thinking on it needed to be not only long-range distance, for only long-range distance communications for transmitting messages, but also needed high bandwidth, because you will not only be able to send messages and Bitcoin transactions, which are pretty slow, pretty short and in data, but it's also letting you like run Electron server in one of your devices, like not the device, you plug the device to the computer that is running the Electron server. So as you are exposing your Electron server over an IP on the internet, you will do it also with an IP over the mesh. And so if someone is close to you or a few hops far away, he will be able to sync his Electron wallet directly from the server that you have put inside the mesh too. So BTC Pay server asking for a invoice payment in the Lightning Network, or if there is an internet infrastructure failure, you can still send messages to Beacon transaction, access censorship-resistant websites from other servers that are exposing those through the mesh. The idea of this is that we think that Locha mesh is important because we've taken all the difficulties that other projects have had over the years, and we try to solve them the best way possible for the next 5, 10 years. So we want this to be workable, that usable for people in many places, not only hostile places where there are so many difficulties, but also in Europe and the US, if you are concerned about your privacy, if you don't want to expose your IP, or you don't want to make a transaction from your cold Bitcoin wallet, from your 3G mobile where you have your ID already connected to. So you will be able to like broadcast over the mesh, and someone else in a gateway or on a bounding router will broadcast it to the Bitcoin network if needed. So we thought about it needs to be very low consumption, so it only uses Bluetooth for the first setup, but then you can use Wi-Fi, so you can connect up to 3 mobile smartphones to the same URL that you have, so you can have like a hotspot or a router in your house, so your relative can connect to it and chat and send Beacon transaction with it. You don't need like one for each one of your family member, which is like kind of difficult in some places. But you can also like build your own using the OpenWRT router and adding the radio module to it that we are going to also make accessible to people by selling them, or also like giving it as an open hardware and with all the specification and sources. The idea is that it could run on battery for several days, but also very low consumption. Let's see, like run on solar power. It has support for 6LoWPAN for IPv6 in order to be able to offer services. The communication is encrypted because we use the free bands of radio that lets you do that. Currently now you can use even the same device both in the US and Europe because they have made the 915 band open. It's free now, so you can use it and for encrypted communications. But we thought about it doing also like open hardware, not only open software, because we want it to be verifiable privacy, but there is like some privacy, but it's also that you can check its anonymity and you can check what it's actually doing the device and what the software they are running for it is also doing. Well, this is why we think that our project is important for the development community, developers community. So we would like them to take a look into it, help us or fund us or help us making it better. And we have some help from the some Lightning developers that will help us make Lightning payments possible over our mesh network. Well, don't get confused with the Locha word. It has some different uses in other countries. It's laziness in some countries, and this is also the name of this fish, but it is not why I use it. I use Locha, the word, because it is a Venezuelan coin, which was from the late 1800s, and it's 1/8 of a silver coin. So it is 1/8 is La Ochava. So it's meant, now it's pronounced like Locha. People use it that way. But the reason that I really use this word not only is because Venezuelan, and I'm also Venezuelan too. They would like a lot this project for communications. It's because it represents today an expression. Is not a coin anymore. It's not coined anymore. So it's used as this expression that la locha is money. So when you fight for the lucha, you fight for your money. So when you ask someone, how you doing? En la lucha por la lucha. So I'm doing all I can to earn my money. So I hope that you, developers, and everyone in the world who is concerned about privacy and about permissionless freedom, join my fight and our fight here for la lucha por la lucha libre, because we want it libre and free for all, as in freedom. Thank you. Oh.
Thanks for the talk. Is it being used in Venezuela now? Is it already, are people using it?
We are currently finishing the development boards that is on design that we're going to make public too. So it is currently into like testing stage. So we are capable to shipping this development board to developers. Thank you. Thank you.